What does that mean?
Human.
Human. Kind of ironic coming from Dexter Morgan, the guy who, I don't know, at best in early years thought the closest he could get to human was just mimicking what the humans did. Watching Dexter become more and more human, that's been part of Dexter's journey throughout the whole series. And usually we think of being human, especially on this show, as a good thing. But this season, we're showing the sort of the darker side of being human. It's not all nice and neat like Dexter used to think he was. Reckon he was a very neat monster. And welcome back to the Dexter Wrap-Up Podcast for episode 704, Run! Written by Wendy West, directed by John Dahl. Me, I'm Scott Reynolds. I'm a writer-producer here on Dexter. Been here since about halfway through season 1, and I'm loving it. Can't believe I get to do this for a living. And now I'm here to podcast about the episode to give you more behind-the-scenes look of all things Dexter. So if you listened before, you know that, after I talk about after we recap a little bit, we'll go straight to an interview with none other than Sergeant Batista, David Zayas, followed by a series of questions about last week's episode, 703, compiled from you, the listeners, answered by none other than Dexter showrunner Scott Buck and the writer of last week's episode. So you're probably wondering, how do you get your questions on this week's episode on the podcast? Well, here's how you do it. If you're into Twittering, which, feels a lot better, you could go to twitter.com/SHO_Dexter. And once again, twitter.com/SHO_Dexter. And make sure you hashtag Dexter Wrap Up so we know that you're asking us this question and not just random people out there that are into Twittering also. But you better do it quick after each episode on Sunday night because we're going to pick these questions on Monday night and then answer them on Tuesday for the next podcast. So if you went in on this stuff, you better watch Sunday night. Better get those questions in. Anyway, back to the episode at hand. Run. You got to admit, as fun as it was to watch Batista and Deborah shred Speltzer in that interrogation room, that Minotaur guy, it wasn't nearly as satisfying as when you realized Speltzer was going free. Finally, Dexter gets the chance to kill him at the graveyard. And you got to admit that moment when Michael screamed right back at him, that's about as good as it gets for a kill scene, right? Followed by Dexter giving his sister the gift of Speltzer smoke. I mean, that's the kind of gifts you get when your brother's a serial killer. And I don't know. I think that's sweet. And let's not forget the major change that happened in that kill room in Dexter's life when he burned those slides. All of his slides. There's no more mementos for Dexter. No more collections. No more memories. His friends, right? Our little serial killer's growing up here. Also in this episode, we had Isaac, right? The Ukrainian gangster, forcing Alex, the bartender at the foxhole, forcing Alex to kill himself to be the patsy for Mike Anderson's murder, which was pretty darn cold-hearted. Ray Stevenson's amazing in this role. Though, I don't know if you noticed, but he's not as cold when you see him looking at Victor's picture, huh? Back at his apartment, Victor who was killed by Dexter. There's a lot of pain in Isaac's heart in that moment, and it makes you wonder what sort of pain he's going to bring Dexter's way. Finally, also, we got Hannah, the Bonnie to the dead Wayne Randall's Clyde. Remember him from episode 702? Did you see the way that Dexter got a little flustered by Hannah in that greenhouse? And that's, can you blame him? I get a kick out of that moment when he tries swabbing her and drops the DNA swab on the ground. That connection between Dexter and Hannah was palpable, and I'm sure that's going to turn out all right, right? It always does. Anyway, enough of this recapping. Let's get to David Zayas, a.k.a. Angel Batista. He's coming in his cop car. I think you're going to like this guy. We go into his background, which I think you'll probably find very surprising. It involves full frontal nudity. Yeah, so you got that going for you. And, of course, we'll talk all about Batista and his journey with all the other characters over the 7 seasons on Dexter. Hey, here we are at the Dexter, we call it the Dexter Wrap-Up.
Nice.
It's like sort of a pun. You get it? Like he wraps people in plastic.
Yes.
It's very witty.
It's
unbelievable.
I couldn't have thought of a better name myself.
We're sitting here with David Zayas, also known as Lieutenant either Angel if you're a Caucasian on the set, or Angel. Sometimes Batista.
The Caucasians call me Angel. It sounds very sexy.
They don't.
They sound very
it gets
sexy.
Confusing. Hello, Angel. And you're not wearing a hat, and you're not wearing a loud shirt. This is just the regular David Zayas.
Good old Dave.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming out to this thing.
My pleasure.
Thought what we could do is maybe talk a little bit about you at the beginning, David Zayas, because you have quite an interesting beginning into the whole acting thing. I mean, everybody else that we've talked to so far has sort of like in high school they started theater, you know, and they and you didn't quite have that path.
No,
because you were.
Well, I'll start from before that.
All right.
I grew up in the South Bronx.
Yeah.
And my cousins would take me to the movies every week, and they were in the back row smoking pot, and I'd be in the front row watching the movie. And I went to see all the 70s movies like that.
So like on the...
right on the front row.
All the Kung Fu movies? And
every
all that,
movie like you could imagine. And the thing about in the 70s, you could sit there and just relax and watch the movie again when it came.
Because they played it all day. They grinded it out.
They grinded it out. And so it wasn't like it is today. But... yeah, I've always wanted to be an actor, but being from a blue-collar background, I kind of like, they kind of put the kibosh on that early on and made me take all the civil service tests. Make a long story short, I ended up in the Air Force for about 5 years.
Oh, right.
And when I got out, I immediately joined the New York City Police Department.
Where were you at in the Air Force?
I went to Holloman, New Mexico.
Okay.
I went to Bentwaters, England, by Ipswich, and I was there for like 3-4 years.
Wow.
And then I got honorably discharged, and I came out. I went to New York, and I immediately joined the police department, and I became a cop.
Did you have family that are police too, or is it?
No, my dad was a sanitation man. I had a couple of cousins that were firemen.
Okay.
I was the first cop. And the first actor, I guess. I'm first in many regards. Though my grandfather was a cop in the 30s and 40s in Chicago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a rough time in Chicago.
Yeah, I heard I never met him, but I heard he was a rough guy.
Yeah.
You know.
So then you were a policeman, walking a beat, or
I was in a patrol car.
Okay.
In Washington Heights in the 80s.
Right.
With the crack epidemic started. It was pretty busy during those times. And then, like 7 years into it, around 1990, I would say, I don't know, I had a bad year. I got divorced. I filed for bankruptcy. Oh. It was just a bad week, actually. It was in 1 week all this happened. I had to ask a friend to stay in his place for a while. Oh. And it was just a bad week. But for some reason, I was like, I think this is a good opportunity to pursue was something that I've always wanted to do.
Right.
And so I went and then one weekend I went to see a bunch of Broadway shows and to motivate myself, which it did. And
like musicals or
no, dramas.
Yeah.
I remember seeing A Few Good Men. I remember seeing Death and the Maiden, seeing Al Pacino in Chinese Coffee. It was during that time.
Yeah.
And I joined an acting class at the Ernie Martin Studio Theater.
And you're still a cop during this time?
I'm still a cop, right. Yeah. And I met with him, and I studied with him for about a year.
Right. And
then I studied with William Esper also. Right. And then there was a theater company forming. At that time it was called Lab. It turned out right now it's still going on. It's a Labyrinth Theater Company. Right. With these wonderful actors, and we started doing a lot of plays. And a couple of years in, we got the guys like Sam Rockwell and Philip Seymour Hoffman and John Ortiz and Paul Calderone. And
so Savages is a little bit of a return to some of those guys.
What was that?
When you were in Savages, that was like a return to some of those guys.
Well,
they remembered you
with Philip. Well, Philip directed me in a lot of plays in the Labyrinth Theater Company, and Savages, I just was lucky enough to be in the film that he was in because he's a wonderful actor. Yeah. And so I started doing a lot of plays while I was still a cop. I switched to midnight shift, and I did a lot of plays, and then little parts here and there on local television shows like Law and Order. And
because a lot of shows were filming around
New York Undercover. And
they loved having a cop that's an actor, I bet.
Yeah, you know, what's funny, because I'd auditioned, I wouldn't tell them. I didn't want them to know. I didn't want a preconceived notion as to who I was.
Right.
I didn't want that. I kind of just wanted them to, just either give me the part or not give me the part based on what I did in the audition room.
Right.
And so I never really told people until afterwards. I remember I got cast in this show called The Beat.
Okay.
and as a cop, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
And after I got cast, I said, I'm a cop. And I remember some of the guys going, "That was so good. We knew exactly who we were looking for," and But that was the first show I did steady, The Beat, with Tom Fontana, Barry
Right.
Levinson. That was, and
Those guys
Mark
liked you.
Ruffalo. Yeah. Because
yeah.
then after that, they wrote me a great part on Oz, which after The Beat got canceled, I immediately went to Oz. And,
Right.
I started.
You showed a lot of yourself there in the Oz.
I did show a lot.
All of your.
I ain't gonna tell you which episode. It's funny because I had a nude scene in Oz, and the day after they aired it, I went on the train,
Oh no.
and there was this like 70-year-old woman comes on the train, and she sits across from me, and I look at her, and she looks at me, and she gives me that look like, "Yeah, I saw you last night."
Didn't go home alone that night, did you?
No, right. But yeah, that was. But it was still a
Were
great.
you a cop still at that point?
I was still a cop.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was very
What
controversial.
was that like coming to work then? Yeah, that's right. Because there's like I feel like if a
got
female had done that.
my chops were busted royally. But I wasn't posing for Playgirl magazine.
Right.
It was a drama about prison, so
Yeah.
things happen. But no, and so when Oz ended, towards the last year, I was like, I was working midnights. I was doing plays. I was shooting Oz during the day. I wasn't getting much sleep, and it was exhausting. And so 15 years into, I decided that I'm gonna vest out. I'm gonna retire early.
Yeah.
Which was a bit. People thought I was a little bit crazy because you never know. The life of an actor is so, unsure, and you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I left a job that was like, steady and benefits, and
You're good at it, I imagine.
I was.
If you say open the door, I'll open the door.
I'll open the door. I was a good. I thought I was a good cop. I was a pretty good cop. And it was an interesting job. I liked it.
Yeah. You're different. I mean, no offense to cops. I like cops.
Mm-hmm.
But cops, most of the cops that I know, like I grew up in Chicago, and there was like a couple cops that I knew. They there is sort of like a law and order sensibility to them, like sort of a no BS sort of.
Yeah, I didn't have that.
Yeah, it had to be sort of weird, right?
I was called the liberal. He's David the liberal, the bleeding heart. I kind of had a very just different way of looking at things. I was very tolerant on a lot of things that maybe other cops were not. I got along with everybody. I mean, I was wasn't thought of in a bad way. But they knew that there were certain things they probably couldn't talk about in front of me because I'd have something to say about it.
Yeah.
And so that was and so going into acting was probably not surprising to a lot of cops, and because I always talked about it, I always wanted to do it. And I remember this old cop because I just shut up and just do it. And
he told you to do that? Yeah.
Because I just shut up about it, just do it, and then I finally did.
That's good, and thank God for that, right? Because now here you are.
I'm very
playing a cop.
Playing a cop. Very lucky. I've been very lucky in the opportunities that I've been able to have, and I've tried to make the best of them.
Yeah. Do a lot of the actors look to you for on this show, and I guess other shows? The minute they hear you're a cop, is it suddenly like, am I holding the gun right? Is this? Not anymore.
Sometimes, rarely. I mean, hopefully, these days, actors, they're going to get a cop role, they're going to pretty much do their research.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe in certain situations, they will go, well, what would happen in certain situations, whether it's on this show or past shows that I've been on, and then most of the time I have an answer for them. Every once in a while, I'm like, you know what? I don't know. But we'll figure it out, and I know who to ask. So I could always make calls, so
you still have friends back in New York and they're all proud of you. They bust your balls when you come back around.
They do, but not so bad anymore. No, I do have a lot of friends. Most of them are retired.
Yeah.
Because in the cops, they got a great pension, 20 years, you could retire, and most of them do.
Which is sort of something we're dealing a little with on this season of Dexter with Batista.
Exactly.
Is this all worth it?
Yeah, he's thinking, oh, just move on and do something,
Yeah.
and try something else. But, sometimes, and I know cops like this, if it's in your blood, it's in your blood.
Right.
And you can try to do all kinds of other things. And if being a cop is in your blood, that's what you're going to be.
Yeah.
Being an actor was in my blood.
Yes.
So there was that transition, though it was difficult financially and, just in coordinating how to do things.
Because you have a family and everything,
I had a
so
family.
it's not just you.
Yeah, no. I had 2 kids. I was supporting, and
Yeah.
and it was a tough choice to make. But
They all supported you, more or less?
The people that mattered supported
Right.
me.
Right, right.
The ones that mattered supported me. Some had no opinion,
Right.
or they didn't tell me.
Right.
And some said, we think you're crazy,
Yeah.
and you should reconsider. Maybe you should go talk to somebody, like a therapist or something, But that transition emotionally, intellectually, and just in my body and in my heart and my brain, that transition wasn't that difficult to go, because I had been doing it for 7 years prior to
Right.
retiring. It was where my passion was. And so when you go somewhere, even when you make a change, even if that change, I think, is less than it was than prior that you had, you
Right.
still, if it's what you have passionately, the transition is going to be easier.
Yeah. You just gotta
are
go
gonna-
for it sometimes.
You just got to go for it
do.
sometimes. You live once.
Yep.
Go for it.
Yeah, yeah. When I moved to LA, my dad sort of sat me down and gave me the non-talk, like, "Yeah, you sure this is necessarily?" I mean, but he was right to do that as a
Right.
dad,
Of course.
because I didn't know anybody, I didn't know anything. But when you got to do it, you got to do it.
Yeah, my son now, I'm like, what do you want to do? Do you want to? He goes, I want to be more on the other side of the camera, and I'm like, good, good, because it's a tough.
It's rough.
It's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough. I know a lot of amazing actors, much more talented than I am, and much more committed than I am, that just have not caught on.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is based on, missing out on opportunities. A lot of it is based on fear.
Yeah.
Some of it is based on just luck.
And it's based on that one moment. You're sitting in a casting office and you have a bad moment before, and it could mess everything up.
Yeah, and the thing about, acting and the business of acting is things can snowball.
Yeah.
It could snowball up.
Yeah,
it could snowball down. And you just have to, be ready for everything.
So here we are now. You've been detective, now sergeant.
Now sergeant.
Angel Batista for
Almost lieutenant.
Almost lieutenant.
But
that was a heartbreaker of a season.
Yeah.
You played that well. That moment between you and Deb.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Batista and Deb.
Okay.
I feel like watching the two of you together, there is it's almost like you're the other brother.
Well, yeah,
in some
it
ways.
feels that way. Listen, we'll talk about the characters, and I'm going to talk about us as actors, myself and Jennifer.
That's
And, what I've felt and what I've tried to create, and Jennifer as well, is, we have that kind of relationship where regardless of what the situation is, he is like a supportive brother.
Yeah.
There is something about Deb that Batista really admires.
Yeah.
Something that maybe he had in the beginning that he's still trying to motivate more inside himself. And she has that, that need to do something right.
Yeah.
And so they have that kind of relationship. So he's very supportive of her in every way.
Because she's leaned on Batista a lot. I feel
yes.
like. In ways that her brother was never able to, Dexter was never able to give.
Right.
You've been the one to be there for that stuff. Or
Right.
Batista has been.
Yes, especially within the work environment. And
Yeah.
and there is a kind of affection between the two that is unique, and I think it's good for the story.
Yeah.
And me myself as an actor, when I get to do these scenes with Jennifer, she's probably one of the most prepared actors I've worked with. And she comes in and she's so sharp.
Yeah.
And so, and
She has lots of good questions.
Great
Yeah.
questions, and occasionally we talk about the scenes, and when we talk about the scenes, it feels like is like we're talking about what will work for the scene, what will work for our characters, and I have a very good working relationship with Jennifer when we do these scenes, and so that it shows. I think it really shows, because when we're shooting it, is number one, we both come in and we're both. I'm very meticulous about coming in prepared, coming in ready to go.
One take, man. That's you.
Yeah,
from the start, you got it.
But I'm very prepared, and I try to be prepared as much as I can. Not only with lines, of course, everybody should know lines, but just in the life of the scene, and to try and see match with what you guys wrote, and just the vibe and the energy that might be very important in episode 9 if we're shooting episode 4.
Right.
You know, so that
it's got to be tough, because we don't necessarily tell you.
No,
what's
but you
coming
know,
down the pike.
but you know, after 7 years, just like you get a feeling of how we speak and our pattern and our characters, we also have that. You know, so if something happens in episode 2, I kind of feel like all right, I have an idea where this is going.
Right.
And you try to
that's interesting.
You know, you try to play it that way, to try, because overall we're here to support the story of Dexter. Right. You know, and so it's always interesting to know that my little storyline maybe is going to have some kind of effect on what's going to happen between Deb and Dexter. Right. Between whether it's her, you know, feeling that she did something wrong with Batista in order to, whatever it is that, you know, happens, we always have that feeling that, you know, whenever I work with Jennifer, it's going to be a good day, because we're coming in prepared, and we're going to do the best we can with what, you know, you wonderful writers have written for us.
Hey, you guys are great, man. And then Quinn, Desmond.
Yeah.
It's been hysterical to watch the two of you working together. Where at the very, what is it, season 5? Season 5
is when we.
You guys even got high together, and
I like working with Desmond, because Desmond brings a lot of good energy to the set. But he's Desmond is the one that knocks on my door and said, "Let's go over these lines over and over again." Really? And so we, you know, when we have scenes together, which are always a lot of fun. You know,
because you're either butting heads or.
Well, butting heads, or I'm doing something reluctantly to back him up. I'm doing something. He's always getting in trouble. He's like the brother that you know, you got to always like bail out.
It's a little like Mean Streets. I feel like you're what's his face? I'm forgetting his name.
Harvey Keitel?
You're sort of Harvey Keitel,
De Niro.
and he's De Niro.
And the thing about it is that it didn't start off that way. I think the characters kind of grew on each other. Yeah. And I mean, it was written great, and how that developed. And you know, when Desmond first came on, I believe it was in season 3. Right. You know, reluctant. You know, he had that energy, and we're like, you know, calm down, kid, calm down.
We've been here a while.
That's it. Just relax. Come in, just do our thing. You know, but
take off your shirt.
Exactly. But he's turned out to be a great asset to the show, and it's really great. I always enjoy working with him whenever.
And again, it's this sort of familial relationship you have with him. It's again, you feel like the big brother in some ways.
The big brother, or the
buddy that says,
the buddy that's like, all right, let's, you know,
all right, I'll get your back on this one. But
and somehow he always gets himself in some trouble, you know, one way or the other.
Thanks to the penis.
Exactly.
Which Batista's had his problems with that too.
Well, you know, listen, I think Batista. The one thing great about Angel Batista, even from the beginning, you know, from when I read the pilot, was, you know, he's got a lot of flaws. Yeah. You know, he's got a lot of flaws. And
what's the opening line for Batista was, I think that everyone remembers, was...
Yeah, I have my needs too. That's it. I remember that. I have my needs too. I think that, I think Batista has got his sense of loyalty, his sense of integrity, but he also has these dark little, demons, when I guess women is one of them.
Hookers.
You know, it's actually hookers, which didn't turn out too well for him. Well, it did turn out well, but, initially it didn't. But, yeah, and also there's problems with his wife, and then, then his marriage to La Vuelta, and then, he's always...
He leads with his heart.
He leads with his heart.
Yeah.
If there's one thing that he's not on top of or does not see much future, I mean, in other words, he's very spontaneous when it comes to women.
Yeah, and
you know,
drinking,
money,
and just spending, everything.
Yeah, he's very
in
extreme.
The moment.
Yeah, in the moment, and so that's been an interesting journey when it comes to his love life with Angel Batista.
It's been a little monogamous here of late, but who knows? Who knows what'll happen?
Who knows what happens? I mean, who knows what he does?
And then your sister, your stepsister, comes to town.
Amy Garcia is great.
It's fantastic. Yeah. The relationship again. You're like you are literally
the big brother.
Yeah.
And Amy is wonderful, and she caught on right away. She literally it was fun. I never knew Amy before this, and it's fun to do the few scenes I've had with her. It's really good.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch. And then sometimes you've helped us out up here because we have no idea of like culturally some of the things. Because I remember there was a scene where she called you an idiot or stupid idiot or something like that. And
yeah, and
you were like,
yeah, my sister would not get away with that.
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't happen in a.
And we were like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
In a Latino family, it's not going to. I mean, there is a certain kind of hierarchy, like mom and dad is. I mean, at least in my family it was, and in most of the families of my friends that are Latin, there is a certain respect, even though they could be wrong as hell, but there's a certain way to deal with that. And so when I read that scene, I said that it just didn't ring true.
Yeah, thanks for that. That helped us out a lot.
But you guys, it fixed it well, and it kind of worked out really good, and that scene came out really good.
It's been a lot of fun. And then I'm trying to remember if there's anybody else that La
Vuelta, yes,
that's a very sort of messed up relationship that's going on between the two of you.
Well, it's two strong characters and two characters that have different agendas within the show.
Yes.
When you get together, something is going to give. Yeah. Something is going to clash.
Because at first it was all very sweet.
It was all very sweet.
You guys were just calling each other by all of your names.
Yeah. It was as it always is. That honeymoon period. But then,
very short.
But then the agendas come in and they clash, especially when you're in the same work environment.
Yeah. And her position as like up above.
Her position as a captain, and also her ambition. Her ambition to be on top. And
she's just fantastic.
Literally and literally. It's like, and as for Lauren, I've known Lauren for over 20 years. She was part of that. She was part of that theater company we're talking about. Yeah.
Oh wow.
And
so you guys have been doing this together for a long time.
I've known Lawrence for a long time. Yeah.
Oh, you worked on Oz together.
We worked on Oz together. We've done plays with Labyrinth together.
Did you Undercover? Was it?
I did an episode of New York Undercover. So we've crossed, but we have a great relationship. She's such a good friend of me and my families. So working with her is just so wonderful, and she's another one that. Man, when she comes to work, she brings it. She's so good. She's so good that sometimes I'm like, well, hold on, let's go back. Let's go over this because I gotta be, when you're working with someone who's really good, it makes you better, And so, a lot of the actors, in the show make me better because you have to come in and you have to be there with them.
That's how I feel working on this show.
That's it.
I feel like I'm looking up at these amazing writers that I work with and going, God, I hope they make me better.
Yeah, but they
do.
They do. Everybody, we all make each other better, and the writers make each other better, and you come up with some great ideas, and that triggers different ideas in you, and it's just great. That's what art is about. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Iron sharpening iron, whatever.
That's it.
So season 7, we come into Batista. With Mike Anderson getting killed.
Yes.
And surprisingly, it's sort of, I guess not surprisingly for you, but it affects Batista pretty significantly. It's like a come to Jesus moment almost from career-wise, it seems.
Yeah, well, it's when you lose an officer, someone who you work with, which has happened to me in real life.
That's right, in New York,
it's tough to, you start thinking about your own mortality and what you do, and some of the things that, you know, you have to look after while you're working, and whether it's worth it or not, whether it's, you know, should I try something different? That's just human nature, and I think you hit it right on the head with Batista when this happened, because here's a guy that supposedly had a cop that had everything together.
Yeah.
You know, like you've seen the other season 6, we're like, who's this guy, Mike Anderson? He's all decked out. He's got no fat on him. He's nothing but muscle.
That guy was all muscle.
He's like, that guy was all muscle. You bump into him, it's like bumping into a rock. And he's smart, and he's on top of it, and he's from Chicago.
Yeah.
And so someone like that gets killed, we're all at risk, and you know, why are we doing this? What is it? You know, you do have those questions, you know, and I think, and Batista's the type of person that when those questions come into him, he really takes it to heart.
Yeah.
And he really, it becomes more like an obsession with him.
Yeah.
You know?
Whether it's a necklace in season 1.
Exactly. Whether it's a necklace,
like
or whether it's like, I got a date that I thought was a prostitute who happens to be a cop. I have to date her. He becomes very obsessive, which, you know, is good and bad.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think this is in the same realm of that. And plus, he's getting
this too, right?
Well, he's going to solve it, and also, you know, he's getting older. Maybe he should try. Maybe he's thinking about trying something else. But I do believe Batista is a cop in his blood.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and so that's. I'm curious to see myself where it goes and what happens.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we all feel like he is murder police. That is.
Yeah, he is.
Solve it.
He's murder police.
Yeah.
Is what, you know, motivates him to wake up every morning and go to work.
Yeah.
You know, and so, season 7 so far, it's very interesting. Now, we're talking about this. People have already seen
They've seen
episode
1,
4.
2, 3, 4.
Okay,
right.
So we know about the new villain and everything. And
there's that great moment in 4 with Speltzer.
Yeah.
Where at the funeral.
Right.
Where you are, again, playing the sort of like big brother, the role that Dexter should be playing, but he's not.
Right.
There's like this big hole in her life that you are being, whether you like it, whether Batista likes it or not, he has to fill it.
It's what it is.
But there's a sense of duty behind Batista that
absolutely,
that you're going to a funeral, Batista's there with you.
Yeah,
right?
I got to make sure she's okay.
But there's that moment in your face when you see Jennifer, you know, darting across towards Speltzer. She pulls off her shoes.
Yeah.
And you get in between. It made me forget. I mean, you know, after having been part of the writing process of this thing, it made me forget. I thought for a second that you were going to belt that guy.
Yeah.
And it made me think, oh, maybe we should have had him belt that guy.
You know, it's because Batista has belted many people in the 7 years
for lesser reasons.
For lesser reasons, but I think that he did. I mean, it makes sense that because he was still trying to get him.
Right.
You know, we're still trying to get him the legal way. You know, so it was the right thing to do. I think it was great. I mean, yeah, he turns around for a minute. I actually, when I was reading, I said, "Oh, I'm going to wind up wrestling with this guy or belting this guy." Who, by the way, that guy's tremendous. That guy was. That guy was. I think he was scaring people like in the sidelines. And, you know, while we were waiting. That
was like
great actor.
method.
Really
Some method going on there.
Yeah, but. A very nice guy. Yeah. I got to speak to him. I got to know him a little bit. He was a really good guy.
Yeah, I'd worked with him on E-Ring back a while ago. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was a great moment, and also in the interrogation room.
Yes.
And you can see in the interrogation room there is a kind of like a 1-2 punch that you know, Deb and Batista, they're pretty confident that together. Yeah. They can do some, you know, pretty cool things. They could do anything, yeah. And I think that showed in the confidence of both of us when we actually went in and talked to him.
Yeah. My wife, I was watching the episode last night just to sort of refresh my memory. Mm-hmm. And my wife walked in the room and she heard Batista going, squawk, 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 squawk. Right, and she's like, because she hadn't seen anything before that, she's like, why is he talking about Deb like that? She was so angry at Batista. And I was like, oh, no, just watch. It's all got to come together.
What a great shot it was. Like, you you cut right to her face as I'm talking about her. And you could tell she's like, okay, like, yeah.
He's doing that a little too well.
Exactly.
That insecurity that she wears on her sleeve, too, yeah.
Yes, but of all people, she can deal with it better with Batista saying it than anyone else, I think, you know. And so that was a great scene.
Yeah, it was Wendy West. Yeah, she
Wendy
put
West.
that together. She's fantastic.
Fantastic.
And then, what else was I going to ask you? I think that's about it. I think we can sort of wrap it up, unless you want anything you want to.
No.
Anything else you want to bring up about Batista? That
well, you know, listen, it's.
What does the world need to know about Batista that nobody really knows? You wouldn't believe the stuff Remar had some good
about his character.
Harry. Yeah.
Well, no, I kind of like Batista's kind of like an open book.
Yeah.
You know, he's loyal and he's consistent.
Yeah.
And every once in a while he drives off the road.
Which is what makes us love Batista even more.
Which is right. And then he drives off the road. He goes, I got to fix this flat. And he gets back on the road. Every once in a while, he just purposely goes off the road because his passion is what leads him to a lot of things.
And women love Batista. Oh,
do they?
Goodness.
You know,
they just want to hang out with Batista. They want to be protected by Batista.
Well, that's good. You know,
cuddle.
Cuddle. Yeah, they want to go to
which is weird for a cop.
New Beverly.
Well, go to the New Beverly. Yeah, sit in the New Beverly, watch a movie.
But the way you guys have written Batista and the way I've tried to play him, you know, when I first got the role, I was like, well, am I gonna play this? I'm trying. You always think about how you're gonna play the role. What is the, you know? I mean, you got the writers are gonna write great things, but there is an overall, an underlying vibe to the character that you want to choose to get. And, you know, I always wanted to make him where an average guy watching it would say, oh, okay, he would have done the same thing I would have done. Yeah. You know, because really Batista is an average Joe.
And it's weird, we need Batista on a show like this because the extremes
Everything is so extreme. He's just a guy that makes mistakes, does good things, does bad things, you know, does stupid things, does smart things. It's just an average guy. What would happen in real life, and it's been a joy to play him so far.
It's been a joy. It's been a joy to watch. Yeah, and both on set and watching it on TV with friends. And it's thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
And because you shot all morning long.
Yeah.
And then you came here.
No,
out in Long Beach to Hollywood, and then
That's what it's all about. It's great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Angel Batista, David Zayas.
Thank you.
Hey, we're sitting here with Scott Buck. This is Scott Buck.
Hello.
Because they can't see us on this podcast thing.
I'm here.
Yes, which is good because we don't necessarily want to be on video.
We're all seated a little too closely together.
We are. We're sitting in my tiny little office. And I'm also sitting here with Robert Lewis, producer extraordinaire.
Of Dexter.
That's Robert Lewis.
That is I.
Say hello, Robert Lewis.
Hello, Robert Lewis.
He's very... he does exactly what you ask. Producer... Is it like I'm now a producer on this fine television program. Scott Buck is an executive producer of this fine television program, but what we do is completely different from what you do.
That's right.
Why don't you give us a little...
So my job is also sometimes known as line producer, which means I organize the production. So after you guys write the script, my job is to help you realize... Why are you laughing?
Our flawed dreams.
Your job is to help us realize we can't do any of it.
I meant realize your vision.
Oh, that's right. No, that too.
Not realize that it's insane. But you know, I basically am the reality you guys bump up against.
Yes.
So my job is to try to get everything you wrote on film, but to tell you when that can't happen and suggest ideas for making an alternative that could happen.
Also known as crushing our dreams.
Yes. I'm in the dream killer department.
Which means that you go on scouts. What else?
I go on scouts. I schedule the show.
Right.
We can't shoot the show chronologically because that would mean we'd be going from one location for the first scene, then move over to the second location for a second scene, then back to the third location for the third scene. So we shoot out of continuity. We do the first scene and the third scene at the same time,
Right.
which allows us to maximize shooting time. Shooting time is very expensive. What you guys do, is much less expensive than what we do. We're spending $5,000 an hour to get it on film. You guys have the luxury of just basically paper is cheap. But an example of where I might kill your dreams.
Yes, please.
We're talking about episode 3, right?
Yes.
So an example would be we have a problem with night.
Right.
Dexter kills at night. The problem is we shoot in the summertime. We don't have a lot of night.
Because in L.A., it gets dark around 9 p.m.
In the summertime. And it gets light around 5 a.m.
Yeah.
So we have very few hours to shoot night footage. So one of the things I will do is try to figure out ways that we can shoot the show.
Right.
So, for example, the final scene in episode 3, Jace wrote that scene to occur outside of Speltzer's house. This is the scene where Deb and Dex confront each other, and Deb says, I understand what you do. I don't like it, but I understand it.
Right.
And she sets him free.
Right.
And Jace really wanted that scene to be outside because he's set free, and you don't want to be set free in a kitchen.
Right.
And the problem is we didn't have enough hours in the night to actually shoot that scene outside, especially since we had other stuff to shoot at night at Speltzer's.
Right.
So we recommended that we move the scene into Deb's kitchen and it'd be the next morning. The problem with that is we lost that sense at the end of the show of Dex feeling free of Deb. So what we decided to do was go from a close-up of Dexter in the kitchen
Right.
after Deb leaves the kitchen and go outside to we're at her beach house.
Right. In the little yard.
That's right. And we did a little bit of a trick there where we started on close-up. You were supposed to think you're still in the kitchen, but then as the camera drew back, you realize you're outside on the beach. Problem there was we didn't have time to shoot that scene, even the one outside. So we stole time from episode 2.
Oh.
While the company was moving from the garage where Tony Rush was killed with a screwdriver.
Right in the eye.
The company is packing up the trucks when we're done with that scene and moving over to the marina where we shot the next scene. We stole a camera. We stole a cameraman who weren't doing anything at that moment because the trucks were moving to the next scene, and we grabbed that moment outside of Deb's house.
So you do help us achieve our dreams.
That's my goal.
Yeah, I love it.
That's what I live for.
And you've been on this thing since the start, right?
Since the second episode. After the pilot.
Right. Clyde Phillips brought you on because you guys are like compadres. You've been working together for much too long.
30 years.
30 years.
30
he said that
years.
sort of with the glazed look in his eye, but
right. And I'm only 26, so that's a trick.
Let
me just add one more thing about that, if I may.
Please.
Too much?
No, that's great.
Okay.
Wake up, Scott.
I'm here.
Another example is Dexter when he dumps the bodies.
Right.
He does that at night.
Yeah, it's been very ingenious what you guys have done.
Okay, we can't go. I mean, we can do it. We have done it. We usually do it like in episode 12 if we want to really make a bang. But we can't go out on the ocean at night without not only a giant expense but an enormous amount of time. And again, we don't have that much night. So we actually do those scenes on stage.
Which is amazing. You can't even tell.
Yeah. I mean, even when Dexter dropped the surfboard case carrying Victor's body into the ocean and made a big splash, he just dropped it onto a stage floor. And Scott Milne, our brilliant visual effects supervisor, created the ocean and the star field out of a boat on stage.
And a crane.
Right.
And did they rock the boat a little bit too? I can't remember.
We rock the camera.
We rock the camera,
and it looks
but not
like the boat is rocking. All right.
That's rad. Good job. Once again, making dreams happen. Because normally Gary Lau walks into our office and says, "Let me explain to you exactly why you're an idiot," and then he proceeds to tell us what that means. He's your number two, basically.
Co-producer and unit production manager.
Right.
And are even more into reality than I am.
But what's amazing about Robert Lewis, I've been on other shows and whatnot, and I've seen a lot of producers who scream and yell and freak out and get upset. And I don't think I know I have never seen you I've never seen you
phased, yeah,
doing anything but just taking the situation, laying it out, making it work. I've never seen you yell at anybody. I've never seen you, I don't know, what's your secret?
I learned over more years than I wish to admit that it never helps.
So you used to be a yeller.
I never used to be a yeller, but I used to get a lot more frenzied and upset than I do now. And I always found that the urge to scream always bites you in the ass in the end.
Okay, well there you go. Remember that. That's.
God damn it!
As a result, though, everybody wants to work hard for Robert Lewis, even Scott Buck.
No.
Well, everyone but Scott Buck.
Okay.
He'll do what needs to be done. So we got some questions, guys.
Okay.
So from Facebook and Twitter, I'd like to ask you guys. So if you got an answer, both one of you, however you want to work it, can jump in. Our first one is from Danny on Twitter. He asked this question. This is sort of for both of you guys, I think. When creating a guest like Hannah, Yvonne Strahovski, do you have an actor in mind, or do you think of somebody after you flesh them out? In other words, how do you go about casting someone like Yvonne?
It's a little bit of both. We have a very specific character in mind. We, because this was a big guest role, we had a lot of names sent to us, and we took every single one under consideration.
Like hundreds, though, right? I mean,
literally hundreds. Yeah. And Yvonne stood out from the very beginning. And so because of that, even I think before we cast her, after watching her auditions, we realized this is the person. And so we started sort of writing around that, creating it for her, I think. And by the time she was fully on board, it was very much her role.
Yeah. I would agree. I concur.
Fun anecdote about the casting of Yvonne?
Yes, please.
We cast Yvonne first, and then we cast Katya Winter.
Right.
To play Nadia. Nadia's hair and Yvonne's hair were very similar.
Right.
So we asked Nadia to darken her hair.
Katya.
I'm sorry, we asked Katya to darken her hair, which she did. We get to the first table read. Yvonne had darkened her hair without our knowledge. So now they looked alike again. So we had to lighten Yvonne's hair.
It's the little things, man. It's little things. It's always something. Sean on Facebook asks, how did you come up with the Minotaur? I mean, we didn't come up with the Minotaur. First of all, let's just get that out there. We didn't make up the Minotaur. He's been around for a long time. Theseus, gods, whatever. But Minotaur, this was Speltzer, Ray Speltzer.
I don't know specifically. I think we just wanted sort of a fun character where there was a bit more to it than him simply being a killer, that there was a bit of mystery as to what he was doing, that it was all a strange game to him.
Yeah, the sort of maze thing. I think it was Wendy West that was the person who might have been like, I like bulls a lot. How about Minotaurs? Something like that. I think
also, didn't you have to figure out a way to hide his face so Deb wouldn't recognize him? Wouldn't be able to finger him?
Well, no, but she went to his house. She sort of knew. Oh, yeah. No, that's true. Yeah. We also needed a mask. You're right. Look at that. Robert Lewis, man. Bam. A lot of questions about the Minotaur, about Speltzer. He really worked a lot. Hillary on Facebook asks, the maze in the attic was really, is more of a statement at first. The maze in the attic was really, really creepy and had me so nervous for the bit of last night's episode. Where do the writers get their inspiration for these kinds of twisted scenes?
It just comes from the world around us and from our own darkness within.
Yeah. What's the movies we watch and the things we think about every day? The serial killer news articles we read? And
not even movies. Just pick up the newspaper, really.
Yeah.
Let me also add that shut up, Robert.
No, I like it.
That the maze was after it was created on the pages by your minds, was realized by Jessica Kender, who's our unbelievable production designer.
Yeah.
Who just went to town and made that incredible maze.
Yeah, with the nails and the windows. Miss Weir on Twitter asks, regarding Dexter's imagination going wild. This is at the top of the episode when he was in the post office and he was getting a little frustrated and they put the close sign up and then he slashed the woman's neck. And then Masuka was in the briefing room, and then Masuka kept harassing Dexter, and Dexter stabs him in the neck. That's what this is referring. Does Dexter have intrusive thoughts about killing ordinary people, or only in times like this?
I think that would only happen in times of extreme stress because he is a very controlled killer. He has his code, and that sort of keeps everything for him in line. But in situations like this, I think those thoughts will come creeping in much against his will.
Yeah, but he did. What's amazing about that sequence, I thought, was the slight smile he had on the pleased smile he had on his face after he got poor Masuka in the neck, and then he realized, oh wait, no, I shouldn't think that.
It was satisfying in its own way.
Because we've all been in traffic. We've all had murderous thoughts. Even Robert Lewis.
Really?
No, Robert Lewis has never. No, none of you guys?
That's a little frightening,
No,
Scott.
I haven't either, actually.
No.
Sometimes in regards to actors.
We will not say who. Angel on Twitter, or it might be on Hell, I'm not sure. Angel on Twitter asks, if Lewis didn't know about Dexter, this is Lewis's big demise, then why did his opinion matter so much, and why did he send him the ITK hand? Mr. Buck?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
The question is...
If Lewis's opinion doesn't matter?
No, if Lewis didn't know about Dexter, then why did Dexter's opinion matter so much?
Oh, because he idolized Dexter in terms of Dexter was just so good at his job that I think he saw what he could do as a blood spatter expert and was just really impressed by this guy. Was so in control of his world, and clearly, even if he had no idea he was a serial killer, he sensed that Dexter knew a lot about serial killers because he worked around them so much. So it was just his professional opinion seemed to mean a lot to him.
And it hurt, and I guess it hurt him so much when this guy that he looked up to totally crapped on his dreams, right?
Yes.
And why the ITK hand?
I think it was just something he happened to have on hand that he could send to Dexter as a mysterious little, middle finger in the air sort of thing.
Trying to creep him out a little bit.
Yeah.
Just didn't had no idea.
I think he had no idea what he was doing, really, what the real significance of it was.
Can I say something about Lewis?
No, you don't have to. You don't have to ask, Robert.
Okay.
You're making our dreams come true even right now.
I've noticed a lot of people in the forums have been disappointed that Lewis was eliminated so early.
Oh.
And one of the production issues that sometimes affect what goes on in the writing room, and you have to tell me if this is true, Lewis got a Broadway show.
He did.
We couldn't have him for more than 3 episodes. And in fact, even with the 3 episodes, the way we had to do it was we had to, because he was in New York doing a Broadway show, we had to fly him in Sunday night, shoot his scenes on Monday, and fly him back Monday night.
Because they're black on Broadway on Mondays, right?
Exactly. And so he had to be back for his Tuesday performance. So we actually had to shoot scenes from various episodes on those Mondays. So we didn't always shoot, if we were shooting episode 1, we may have shot a scene from episode 2.
Right.
The other issue we had with him is we got a call about 3 weeks before Josh was set to shoot, and he gave us the bad news that the director of the Broadway show was insisting that he grow a full beard.
That's right. He had like a...
Now, episode 1 takes
Bin
place
Laden
4
beard.
seconds, 4 seconds after episode 12 of the prior year. So how did this guy grow a beard overnight? And you can put a beard on somebody. You cannot take a beard off somebody.
Right.
So we really struggled with how we were going to deal with that. And in the end, I think we finally just said, let's pretend it's
We were
not
just
an
going
issue.
to ignore the whole issue. But I think, Josh did show up for our first table read with a full beard, but just realized himself that this was ridiculous, and just before he went on set, shaved it off for us.
Yeah, that was really great of him, right? Yeah. It worked out well. Because it would have been a little odd. Stephanie on Facebook asks, part of her fascination with Dexter has been watching him struggle to figure out how to be a normal family man. In season 6, we got to watch the challenges of Dexter trying to maintain his life with his career and serial killing, all while being a single father. Are we going to continue looking at the fatherhood aspect in season 7? She had concerns, as I guess many people did, about where's Harrison, and is he still going to be parenting Harrison?
Harrison will always be a very important part of Dexter's life. I mean, his son means the world to him, as you can imagine it would for any father. Harrison is always there just because we don't see him in the picture. I think we can assume that Jamie is taking care of him at any given moment if we're worried about where he might be. He doesn't just set him loose in Miami.
Yeah. And this is a show about Dexter's serial killer who's dealing with his sister this season a little bit more than the others. But we will, Harrison will be around. William on Facebook asks, why did you include the line from this episode from 703, I will bring us both down when Dexter was in Lieutenant Morgan's office. Remember that moment? It was when
She's saying to him, don't you...
Deb says that.
Deb says to Dexter, I will bring us both down.
I think it's just a threat. I mean, Deborah is so frustrated at this moment that, I think at times she is willing to ruin her own life in order to deal with Dexter. And it's not necessarily an idle threat. She takes this all very seriously, and she is continuing down a slippery slope that she is not very comfortable at all heading down.
Right, because she was in that moment, she was trying to keep Dexter from running off and killing Ray Speltzer.
Right.
Like, this is not an option, Dexter.
But we also have to keep in mind that this is a sister talking to her brother.
Right. There's lots of extremes. Right. Where are we at? Samantha at Twitter asks, Deb claims she doesn't accept Dexter's lifestyle, yet she's basically allowing him to do it now. How is that not contradictory?
It's completely contradictory. Yeah. People say contradictory things and believe contradictory things all the time. I think Deb is wrestling with this. She's, there's no clear-cut, easy way out of this. So she's saying and believing things that don't meet together in a natural way as she struggles through this.
Because she doesn't understand what's going on half the time. It's tough. Yeah. Well, there it is. Thank you, Robert Lewis.
My pleasure.
And Scott Buck for coming in. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you.
There it is, the end of the fourth Dexter Wrap-Up podcast. Now, if you have some questions after watching episode 704, run, R-U-N, run. You'll have a chance to get them answered by Scott Buck and the fabulous Wendy West, the writer of that episode. The question you may have is how to get your questions answered on this podcast. Well, you go to facebook.com/Dexter, and you can post up your questions there. Or if you're into Twitter, then you can hit us up at twitter.com/SHO_Dexter. But if you're doing the Twitter thing, hashtag that question with hashtag Dexter Wrap Up. But you better do it before Monday night. We compile the questions on Monday night, pick the best of the bunch, and ask away on Tuesday. Today's a Tuesday. That's what we're doing.
It's Tuesday.
I want to thank David Zayas for all the good stuff he gave us about being a cop and an actor. I mean, that guy really, we talk about him being everybody's big brother on set. He's everybody's big brother here. He's a great guy. He's good people. And I also know, I imagine quite a few of you will probably be looking for that scene Zayas talked about, so you too can give him the eye the next time you see him on public transportation. He was nude in a scene. And apparently lots of people hit on him the next day. It was great. I also want to thank Rob Galuzzo, a.k.a. Rob G., the producer sound guy for the podcast. I'm Scott Reynolds. I'm one of the writers here on the show. You can find me at Twitter at JSCOTTAMY, at JScottAmy. You can hit me up there. Sometimes I'll answer questions. Sometimes I get asked to live Twitter the show. I love this show a lot. It's a lot of fun. Catch us next week when our guest will be Daniel Licht, the composer of Dexter. We'll listen to some music from the episode, break down each of the characters' themes. It'll make watching Dexter a hell of a lot more richer, listening to this guy drop his Dexter knowledge. Well, that's it. That's the end. But don't worry, it's going to happen again and again. It has to happen. Have a good week.